shout out to Exodragonic for suggesting this video, and let's go. Let's see what this guy has to say.
Over the last few weeks, I've started to notice a lot of familiar faces from the World of Warcraft community taking another look at Final Fantasy XIV. So today, I want to talk about the differences between these two games, that while sharing many similar concepts...
I want to say something here, okay? I pause 13 seconds in. In my eyes, the left one looks better. Now, not in this particular display, but the left one looks better.
...diverge in their execution of the MMO genre. As a fan of both games and 15-year veteran of WoW, I've often thought about this subject, as I now play through Final Fantasy XIV on a near-daily basis since August of last year. I frequently get asked to compare the two, and the simplest way I've been able to do so is the following. World of Warcraft is an MMORPG, while Final Fantasy XIV is an RPG MMO. What does this mean besides hopefully...
Dude, this is the best way to put it out there. This is so true. And I will explain. Maybe he will explain this further down the line, but I have to say my thing here, okay? Final Fantasy XIV has you as the target, as you as the protagonist, okay? So you do pretty much what is called a linear story. You start from point A to point B to point C to point D. Now, the story is told masterfully, okay? It's a wonder of an MMO. It's a fucking miracle. Like, honestly, Final Fantasy XIV has been the best story I've played in any fucking game up to this point, okay? However, it is pretty linear. Like, you go from A to B to C. World of Warcraft started as an open world MMO. Well, open world MMO, duh, okay? It was more of a sandbox. Like, you wouldn't focus in this linear path. Not in Classic, not in BC. I guess BC was a bit more streamlined, but you were never the focus of the game, okay? In Final Fantasy XIV, you, the player, is the focus of the game. In World of Warcraft, it isn't. The world is the focus of the game, or at least it used to be when WoW was still good. Now, after World of Warcraft lost their path, and they started trying to do what Final Fantasy XIV does, they start sucking dick, it doesn't really go well after that part. But I'm saying how the games started. And the way they started is exactly like that. RPG MMO with emphasis on the fucking RPG element. Whereas World of Warcraft's biggest selling point was that they do not have loading screens in between changing zones. So you guys take whatever you want from this. One is definitely a more MMO focused game. The other one is more of an RPG focused game. I agree with just folks here 100%.
Sounding clever? In Final Fantasy XIV, the entire creative process, the direction, the core concepts, all of it are approached from an intrinsically different design philosophy than that of Warcraft.
Yep.
So it doesn't mean you can't enjoy both, it just means they're made for two very different gamers. Let me explain. I think most people have an understanding of what an MMORPG is beyond any sort of definition.
True.
There are expectations as to what that experience will be.
What is that MMO top left? Is this BDO? And is this the top right? I think this is BDO. This is Guild Wars. This is Star Wars The Old Republic, and what the fuck is this? I know this game. I've never played this game. This does not look familiar to me. I felt it was a bit linear doing all the side quests, but I cannot recommend doing it that way to everyone naturally. But exploring its zone, its tribe, Dothari stick out the most, and that the vibe really changed how I invested to the world. I agree on that. Here's the thing though, like side quests are what you just said, side quests. They add flavor, but they are not the flavor. Whereas in World of Warcraft, the flavor is the entirety of it. You know, like you can't call the World of Warcraft MSQ an MSQ. Like the past few expansions that tried to have an MSQ, it didn't go so far, you know? I get that World of Warcraft can be linear at times. Like, you know, for example, in Northrend, you go to Northrend, you kill the Lich King. But in order to get from A to B, it doesn't really... the way you go there, it's not linear. It's just fucking full of, I don't know, like wiggles and shit. Things of Grizzly Hills. Yeah, you could say that Grizzly Hills had a lot of side quests. You had Argal, you had Ursok, you had the corruption of the fucking of Vordrasil, right? The fucking tree. You had a lot of things to do. You had PvP. Yeah, I think World of Warcraft does this. It's a different approach, and that's why I think Wrath Press right now is the success of WoW, and it's not Shadowlands, because they really invest into the strengths of World of Warcraft.
Which is why after playing Final Fantasy XIV, I've come to call it an RPG MMO. Because while all the multiplayer elements are there, I believe they aren't entirely necessary.
They're not
if
the
the
focus.
MMO were removed and all we were left with was the RPG, the story, the music, the gameplay,
And you can do that
feels
solo,
like the
right?
player would still have a complete experience. This
Yes,
is because
yes,
the
yes,
team
exactly. You can remove the MMO aspect of Final Fantasy XIV, and it will still be a complete player experience. I agree. This is the biggest standout. Whereas if you remove the MMO aspects of WoW, it's dead. You can't do shit. Like, you could maybe change all the raids to have a solo difficulty and FF14 and sell it out as a single player. Soberland and Heavensward patches aren't solo yet, but soon. That would be a good idea in my opinion, dude.
behind Final Fantasy XIV, from its inception, has put its focus squarely on storytelling.
This guy. I love this guy, by the way. This is one of my favorite guys, okay? We all know Yoshi P, we all know Soken. I don't know what the fuck this guy's name is. I like this guy. Like, you tell me who he is, I don't know. Like, literally, you can tell me his name is fucking Bob. I would probably not believe you because he's Japanese, but I don't know this guy. I know Koji Fox, I know Yoshi P and the other guy, but this one, I don't know. I love this guy. And I also like, oh, she's not here? Dude, there is a chubby developer, okay? A chubby lady on the Final Fantasy XIV developer team, okay? I love her. She's such a fucking nerd. She's such a fucking nerd, dude. And you could see that when she was talking about how she does the quest, she's the one that suggested that you make Crystal Tower mandatory before Shadowbringers. You know? She's the lady that did that. I love her. I don't know who she is. I can't tell you her name. I can't tell you anything. But I love this guy. He's like the dig side chief. Best nameless NPC. Exactly. And that lady is the best nameless female NPC. I love her. I could watch her speak for hours because she's a fucking geek, dude. Also, shout out to fucking Alpha. I love Alpha.
This design choice then influences every other aspect of the game, from characters to world building to music to animation, all serve to enhance the storytelling.
To
It
ERP.
is without a doubt the
Don't forget
single
ERP.
most vital aspect of Final Fantasy XIV. Everything comes from the story, everything is related to the story, and everything exists to service the story.
So exactly, dude, they know what they are doing. They know the marketing of the game. They know, you know what? We're gonna deliver these motherfuckers a good-ass fucking story, and that's who we are. And we're to add truffles on top, okay? They bake the cake because they know how to bake the cake, and they add some sprinkles. They add some truffles. They add some, you know, however the fuck you call all these other sweet shit in English. I don't know, okay? But they have their core. And that's something that World of Warcraft doesn't have, but we'll see what this guy has to say.
So as we move forward in this video, you'll see every time I bring up a comparison or idea in Final Fantasy XIV, it's going to be in some way related to the story.
Of course.
And it's because of this one fact that Final Fantasy and WoW can still feel similar to a player moving between the two, but also be vastly different experiences.
You should make a
Let
comparison
me just
about
throw
the
this out
music.
there. What was the story of vanilla World of Warcraft? If you had to think, it's because there was no story. There were quests, there was lore.
Now, hold up. Okay, I need to say this. It started without a story. However, towards the end, it became very story heavy because you low-key knew from the start when you started doing the quest for Urgent Dawn that after you dealt with Scholomance and Strathom that you would inevitably have to deal with Naxxramas, right? So there was some story there. You know, you defeating Kel'Thuzad, you sending him the fuck away. There was some story. But it's true. Like, I'm going to agree with this guy again. Like, I think it's not the focus, okay? They did have some story elements, but that was not the selling point. You could argue that Cthulhu was maybe a bit more story-driven, but then again, all the story was told out of the game. Like, you had to know about the lore of Silithus, the war that took place there, the War of the Shifting Sands, the fucking losses on both sides, how many people fucking died, what happened there, the logistical strikes, the generals, all these things, and how then you open the gates of Ankiraj again, like how they defeated them and how they opened again and what's going to happen and so on and so forth. So I agree. I think I will agree with Jesse Cox right here. It's not... There was a story, okay? There was a story, but it was so subtly said, but I don't think it stands out to most players. Maybe to a nerd like me, or maybe to one of you guys that are super, super nerdy about these things, it will stand out, but not... But, okay. Not to everyone.
Certainly different adventures to get involved in, but no overarching story. There was no driving force behind what you were doing.
Yes.
Besides the desire to gain levels, abilities, to see what's around the next bend or explore the next zone. The story of the World of Warcraft was what you, the player, made it.
This is the biggest point. I have nothing to add here. Like this, what you said, it's so true. Back there, your experience, your journey, that's what it matters. That's what mattered. Nothing else did, okay? You had to go out there and do the content for yourself. Final Fantasy XIV has it ready for you. World of Warcraft didn't handhold you. Go out and fuck off. You know, like this is true.
It was trying to find the right Zevras in the Barrens. It was sneaking into the undeveloped Mount Hyjal. It's trying to raid the enemy capital. Those were
I've never been into the undeveloped Mount Hyjal.
In fact, the most recent example of a great WoW memory I have is getting the Alliance Horde Slayer title and that achievement in BFA. The whole point is that you kill enough enemy players to literally be marked on the map as a bounty, and then people try to come kill you, and if you survive long enough, you get an achievement. It was...
It's not if you survive long enough. I think you had to kill 10 people to get marked as an assassin, and then 10 people more as an assassin. So you had to be assassin and kill people as an assassin. That's what you had to do, okay? I got this back in BFA. It was one of the most epic things I did. Actually, it was not really epic. I'm not going to lie to you guys. It was not epic. I would just wait and find the weakest guy on my Demon Hunter. I would go down, kill him in a fucking global, and then fuck off. They had to be max level, but you'd still find the under-leveled ones, you know? And you would go there during the invasions and try to kill these guys. That's what you do.
One of the most exhilarating recent memories I have in the game. I loved every moment of it. In Final Fantasy XIV, if you ask someone their favorite moment, and I did, almost every single person is going to say theirs is related to story.
Little son! Dude, I don't know if that is my favorite moment, the little son moment, or when Alice gets pet by fucking Estine and she's like, I am not half not. And they did such a good job. Like, the animators did such a good job. You could see the rage in her fucking expression.
Obviously, this isn't every player, as many players find the same camaraderie and accomplishment as WoW players when taking down harder bosses. But for the majority of players, the story is not just an important part of the game, it's also something that binds the community together. With that said, after years of playing WoW, to say there isn't a fan base for the world or story building they're doing would be foolish, as I am one of them. But let's be real, the majority of players simply do not care about the plot of Warcraft. I'd have to guess that's because it was never really the driving force of the game that got them playing in the first place.
I disagree. The majority of the players doesn't care about the story in World of Warcraft because it was fucked in the ass by the writers. You can't deny that the majority of the player base did not lose their shit when they killed the Lich King and when they watched that cinematic, okay? I was back then raiding, okay? And I was not in an RP server, I was not playing with RP people, but we watched that fucking cinematic together and everyone was like, oh my god, oh my god. They were not excited because of the kill. They were super duper excited about that moment. Then got sucked into RP thanks to school friends that played Warcraft 3, then got a fuck ton of books, and that was it. I have never purchased a single World of Warcraft book. All the knowledge I have about lore, I've read online. All the knowledge I have of lore, I found myself. I would never pay a single penny. I was really close. I was really close at some point, okay? But I would never pay a single penny to a company to tell me the story that they should be telling me in the game that I'm paying 12 euros a month. No, I don't do that, okay? I thought about buying the Arthas book, you know? I really did. But no, I didn't do that. I was like, fuck this shit. You either say it in game or you don't get my money. You fucking greedy corporate piece of shit. And that's my thesis on that.
And more importantly, sticking with it. The fact is, as Blizzard moves more towards storytelling in their more recent expansions, they've developed multiple ways of getting across major plot information to players who may be interested, but it's not integral for the player's enjoyment.
It sucks ass. That's what they should say. Well of Eternity, Day and Night of the Dragon, Rise of the Lich King. Yeah, good shit. And what did they do with this? They retconned it. That's what they do. It was all part of the Jailer's master plan, dude. It was all part of that guy's fucking plan. Look at this shit. I can't even watch this shit without molding my fucking ass. Why? Because I was one of the few people that said that the burning of Teldrassil was good. I can feel the shitstorm approaching. I liked it because it was something extreme, because it meant that, hey, you know what? Maybe we will go into a more Tolkien approach, you know? You have the good guys and the bad guys, and the Horde is finally the bad guys, and the Alliance is the good guys, and you try to kill fucking Sauron, which in this game would be this fucking ass bitch right here, okay? I was disappointed beyond comprehension. They ruined Tyrande, okay? They ruined Sylvanas. They fucking killed Sourfang. I have nothing good to say. The undead wardens forsaking a loot made sense. It just don't try to make sense out of it. Don't try to make sense out of it. You're gonna lose your shit like I have. I was so angry when they did what they did to Alun. I was so angry how they took care of the story, dude. I was really, really angry. I was expecting A, and we got not B, we got not A. We got exactly that. I wanted A, and we got not A.
It's this delivery that provides the necessary surface-level context to keep a player engaged, but has also formed a complicated relationship with players who do enjoy story and world building in Warcraft.
Nobody does anymore.
Team leads and devs change, shifting the vision for each expansion.
That was an epic cinematic. That was an epic cinematic. That was a good moment.
It is essentially the rule of cool. While main story beats are planned ahead, it's very clear that things have changed or will change based on necessity. Main characters vanish, story elements are left behind, and lore is retconned to fit with the moment.
Dude, Jesse Cox. Is it Cox or Fox? I think it's Cox. Cox, yes. Dude, I love you. Okay? No homo. I love you. Just for what you said. They retcon things because it fits their fucking agenda. They turn women into fruit because it fits their fucking agenda. They change the story because it fits their agenda. Nothing is fucking stable in this game anymore. The dead don't stay dead. Ah,
As a big old lore nerd, years of that have definitely left me kind of jaded when it comes to WoW. A silly example is years ago at BlizzCon, I asked the devs about that weird snake tail and Gundrak. I was like, what is that thing? Their response then, and ever since, has pretty much been, we really don't know. Perhaps it was snuck in.
You know what this makes me think of? What sword? They don't know their shit, man.
Perhaps it was dropped content.
And that was back when WoW lore was supposed to be good. Like you guys are seeing here Chris Metzen, you know, the legend.
Who knows? All I can say is, if it was in Final Fantasy XIV, that snaketail would not only have had a purpose, but it would have shown up 2 expansions later as an important character in an ongoing story.
Back then they had humility and a sense of humor and they fixed the lore. This time they don't care. I mean, so in Greece we had this show. We called them Radio Arvila, which means like propaganda pretty much in this fucking everyday speak, you know? And they had made a joke, you know? They were like, we Greeks are the parents of the democracy because we fucked its mother. So I'm gonna use this analogy to Blizzard right here, you know? They don't care. They have fucked this shit up, you know? Like, they have burned the bridge of good lore over and over and over again to the extent that there is not even a bridge anymore, you know? You would assume that there would be something, you know, like some stable thing. Like, I drink water from this bottle. You would assume that in order for me to drink water, there would need to be a fucking bottle. Otherwise, how the fuck are you gonna drink water, right? And don't have some smartass here tell me with your fucking hands. Fuck you, okay? But Blizzard did just that. They're like, what bottle? They remove the bottle. The water falls down. They're like, what water? They turn it into wine. They feel like Jesus or something, you know? They're like, what wine? You were never drinking water to begin with. This was actually blood from the steak that we created a long time ago. It doesn't make sense. That's the problem.
Yep, this is going to be one of those videos that's long enough to be split into multiple parts. But it's good.
You wait about the reaction. I think that my reaction is going to be a 50-minute long video. No, actually, 1 hour and 30 minutes long video.
Because it allows us to dive a little deeper. When it comes to content, both games feature the staples of the MMORPG genre to differing degrees.
Group up
Leveling, dungeons, raids, PvP, special events, grinds, and daily quests.
The Sacred Trinity, right?
The Holy Trinity. They definitely borrow ideas from each other all the time. Yoshi P, the director of Final Fantasy XIV, is notably a huge Blizzard fan. The difference, of course, comes from what the dev teams have decided the focus of their games should be.
I want to pause here. He is a World of Warcraft fan. He loved Blizzard back then. We know that at some point in his past, he has said that he would have wanted to work in Blizzard. We don't know if this is true anymore, right? Think about it. I don't think Yoshi P is, how do I put this how do I put this lightly? How do I put this in a non-offensive way? an ass grabber, a molester, and guy that treats women like shit. I don't think that Yoshi P is something like that. I think I was subtle about it, right? I think this was a PR response, you know? Saying that Yoshi P has no place among fucking molesters. That's something that I believe is very PR on my behalf, but let's keep going.
The best way I can simplify this is to say that Warcraft is more about the destination, and Final Fantasy XIV is more about the journey. As an example,
Warcraft became more about the destination in the recent expansions. It wasn't like this. That's the preposterous part.
In WoW, the leveling process in, say, a new expansion is a buffer between you and max level where the real game starts.
Yes.
I was once told by a friend that he always thought of it as advertisements for places that later on at max level you'll spend time grinding. Once you've leveled up, you can begin doing harder dungeons, farming gear in Mythic Plus, running raids, joining PvP battlegrounds or arenas, and doing your daily quests or grinding rep. And for years,
This guy thinks I can focus on the fucking video while he's playing the Ravana theme on the background. Dude, I'm not even listening at what you're saying right now. I'm so lost in the world of Final Fantasy and in the music that I lost what you said here.
It's not only been a pretty standard MMORPG cycle, but WoW has been the best at it. The goal, of course, is keeping players engaged and logged in. And going back to our original story discussion, doing most of these things continues the Warcraft story as well.
Dude, they
Final
forced
Fantasy XIV,
players online.
It's a bit different. With the story being the most important part, this means leveling isn't just a rush to max level to experience the cool parts. The cool parts are the leveling. At max level, there are certainly raids and dailies and grinds and PvP, but they're nowhere near the complexity of WoW. Leveling up a job in Final Fantasy XIV.
I disagree. I think that the ultimate raids are more difficult than World of Warcraft. Because in World of Warcraft, you can cheese a lot of the fights after you get full best in slot gear. Whereas you can go to today and you're gonna get your ass beat. This cannot be said about Black Temple. Like if you go and raid Black Temple today, like even in Wrath Classic, if you go and raid Black Temple with max gear, it's day and night. You can't cheese this shit in Final Fantasy XIV. I disagree. I believe that Final Fantasy XIV in general has more challenging content, but it is so good placed that it doesn't feel out of the blue. Like, it's not normal. You get a small PP touching you. Heroic, you get a bigger PP touching you. Mythic, you get a big, massive black schlong in your fucking ass. Final Fantasy XIV is way better. Normal, Savage being a more difficult version than normal, and Mythic version, you know, like Ultimate, being more like, you know what, we're gonna give you the Mega Schlong, but you don't need this for gear. You don't need this for character progression. You come here only if you're gonna look beautiful. Also, they have bad luck protection, but we're getting off course here. I believe that Final Fantasy XIV in general makes more challenging content than World of Warcraft does. And better challenging content. Because World of Warcraft right now, if you remove the add-ons, all of the recent raids, not all of them, all of the recent raids become unplayable. However, Final Fantasy XIV, hey, against add-ons, right?
14 isn't just about the leveling process either. Sure, and while you can level up an alt, experience the other faction's story, and a lot of people enjoy that.
Yes.
But in Final Fantasy XIV, each job has its own story and quests associated with it.
Agree, but I want to make something known here. I don't think that I would level an alt in Final Fantasy XIV, ever. Maybe I would just to re-experience the story in case I've forgotten it, but then again, you have New Game Plus, so you can just do that instead of actually going ahead and making a second character. You don't need, that's the best part about Final Fantasy XIV. You don't need a second character. You can do everything on your main, everything. And you have many small stories and the super mega big story. Everything is a fucking story in this game, dude.
You know, they're varying in size and scope, but like the Dark Knight, for example, is universally loved for being some of the best storytelling in the game. Story is what it's about. Most large-scale raids only have one difficulty level and are more events than actual team-building struggles. Those raids and trials that do have harder modes are canonically fan fiction versions of the events, so players who are just there for the story won't miss anything if they don't have time for harder content.
Which is like very, very good if you think about it, right? What did they do? They're like, the Wandering Mistral, like that's his name. If I failed, correct me, okay? But this guy is pretty much like, she overhypes you. He's like, you did this, and it was like that, and it was like this, and it was, and you're like, and he's like, yeah, I might overplay this a little bit, you know? But That's the best part. You know the story the moment you do the content. Now, World of Warcraft tried to do that with LFR, but when the story is dog shit and LFR is even more dog shit, what do you get when you take a shit on top of the shit? You get the shit of the shit, right? And it doesn't really work good. But now, Final Fantasy XIV has a good story. They have a good looking for group system. They have a good community. So you have a jewel on a jewel on a jewel on a jewel. And in the end, you have this fucking beautiful diamond necklace, right? In World of Warcraft, you just have this fucking, I don't know, like a series of Maltesers, but instead of Maltesers, it's actually made out of shit.
PvP, while vibrant, is nothing close to that of WoW. Reputations and dailies exist, but not in a way that forces the player to spend a significant amount of time investing in them. But you're rewarded in a way that makes it feel like you're kind of getting one over on the devs for the amount of time you actually put into it. Let me give you some specific examples. Let's talk reputation grinds. Admittedly,
right?
In WoW, I haven't played much beyond the start of max level content in Shadowlands, and this may be different.
You're lucky.
If we look at most reputation grinds, it's usually something along the lines of like, you earn 750 rep a day with a weekly bonus of some sort, and you need 40 to 50k rep to reach Exalted. So you're...
Let me help you, Jesse Cox, okay? Let me help you very easily. Final Fantasy XIV gives you the option to do reputation. Blizzard makes them mandatory. Because if you don't have the reputation, you are not going to get flying later down the line. You're not going to get X down the line. You're not going to get Y later down the line. In the end, you have to sign up and keep showing up to be fucked in the ass. Whereas Final Fantasy XIV is very simple. What do you lose if you don't do your reps? Nothing. What do you gain if you do your reps? A lot of things. So you don't fall behind. You're not fucked if you skip on beast stripes, if you skip on all these rep things, right? Whereas in World of Warcraft, the game actively forces you to do the content. That's the biggest difference in my eyes when it comes to Final Fantasy XIV and World of Warcraft. One of it, well, the recent World of Warcraft, will try to force you to do content. Show up, do your weekly island expedition, do your bi-weekly warfronts, do your mythic dungeons, do your mythic pluses, do your raids, do this. You have to do X, Y, Z, you have to do this. Final Fantasy XIV is, hey, dude, you ready? No, come on, hey, dude. Okay, maybe you do the dungeons, get pre-BIS gear, then you log in, you do BIS gear. Everything is deterministic, so after some weeks, you will have full best in slot. You know that preemptively. And in World of Warcraft, it's not just that you don't know that at any point you will get full best in slots. It's not that at any point you may never get the item that you want, right? With personal loot, they even fuck you up and they told you, you know what? Fuck you. People got better gear than they had and they want to trade you that piece, they cannot trade you that piece. World of Warcraft actively moved against the player base. It creates such friction, okay? Like, I cannot describe this other than using the word friction. It's hideous. Let's keep going though.
You're looking at, I don't know, over a month of rep farming to reach max reputation. This, of course, is part of the design philosophy again to keep you engaged in the world longer. In Final Fantasy XIV, while some of the older reputations are pretty similar, the newer ones, take Pixies for example, are designed not only to be fast, but to feel very rewarding. Every day you get 3 quests that take roughly 15 minutes to complete, and as a reward, you get tons of reputation, tokens that you can eventually buy rep items with,
EXP,
and then loads of experience. I'm talking like a quarter of your XP bar for 3 quests. And this is great because not only does it make grinding rep easy, but it also rewards you for doing it on one of your other jobs, incentivizing you to level additional classes.
Do you know how World of Warcraft helps you catch up on your ult? It doesn't.
Let's take another example. Unlocking flight. In WoW, unlocking flight has always been a process. A thing that you...
It hasn't always been a process. You are incorrect in this particular part of your video. It hasn't always been a process. It became a process since Mist of Pandaria. And they just kept doing this over and over and over again. The same shit. Pathfinder. You know what was flying back in World of Warcraft? Okay, I'll tell you. You got money? Yeah, go buy it. That's what it was. In Burning Crusade, in Wrath of the Lich King, in Cataclysm, you had money, go buy it.
Really had to earn. Currently, I think to unlock flight, it's something like getting Renown 44 and completing the last sigil and having completed Chapter 12 of the Covenant campaign, receiving memories to unlock account-wide flying,
I am getting PTSD.
and then you can do it in Shadowlands. In Final Fantasy XIV, while exploring the map that you're already exploring anyway, you use a compass to find little green wind orbies, and when you find them all and you complete the area story arc, you unlock flying for that specific zone.
And it works. And why does it work? Because you have one character. You don't have to do this on all of your characters. You have to do it only on one of your characters, and you will get automatically all of the fucking, flying on all of your jobs. Like, it doesn't work like if you swap jobs, you cannot fly anymore. And the best part is, this not only incentivizes you to go out and check the world, but the ether currents are placed out in places that you would go regardless. Like, you would be very close to the currents regardless of whether you want to farm them or not. So in a way, in a sense, it didn't really matter. It was not working against you at any point. The moment you were done with a zone, you could fly in that zone. That's how they did it.
It's not account-wide, but it's easy enough to get just by going through the leveling process. From a design standpoint, I love this. When I first learned this is how you got flying in Final Fantasy XIV, I was actually angry about all the time WoW made me waste. In Final Fantasy XIV, you get to experience the zone, which is what WoW's trying to get you to do, but 14 doesn't gate your ability to move through it
forces
quicker in the future
you to do it
behind some sort of grind. Which has probably got a few of you now thinking, Jesse, you're making it seem like you don't have to work for much in Final Fantasy XIV. But of course you do. There are things like fancy
playing his
relic
rotation
weapon
wrong.
grinds and stuff like that, but not nearly to the degree that WoW makes you grind out stuff. Honestly, I think we're so used to Blizzard making us go through content multiple times for months in order to unlock something like flying that anything less seems ridiculously easy. But that shouldn't be the case, gang. I don't know anyone who enjoys it.
Guys, I don't have a better metaphor than the one Bellular Gaming gave. Blizzard gives you a beautiful salad and they put a dick on it. And they're like, eat around it. There is a dick in my salad. Final Fantasy XIV simply doesn't put dicks in the salad. Also, I can see the love for Borgia, dude.
But we still do it. It all
at
just
some
comes down to the fact that the Final Fantasy XIV devs are not trying to keep you in their world for countless hours. So it seems like everything is a little easier. The fact is, the 14 devs have literally said they don't care if you log in every day.
Dude, exactly. Even Yoshi P said, hey, you know what? Maybe if you're done with the fucking content, you should fuck off. Now, he didn't say it like this, but he did say it. If you're done with the content, don't feel the need to log in. Don't feel the need to renew the sub. Maybe you should stop playing for a while.
Get what you want from their game, come back when you want more.
Yep, exactly.
Instead, the grindy bits of Final Fantasy XIV are something entirely different. I recently saw this ad for Final Fantasy XIV, and it made me laugh, because I've never seen anything like this for WoW. But most Final Fantasy XIV players will tell you this is where the majority of your max level adventure lies.
Yep.
Look at this thing. Gathering, crafting, free companies or guilds, housing, fashion, the gold saucer, which is like a permanent version of the Darkmoon Fair. And I'll be honest, okay? You'll be honest in a second. I'll be honest first. Crafting and gathering, World of Warcraft has killed. Now they're trying to fix it with Dragonflight. I'm very optimistic for that because they've actually invested a lot of resources into that. We'll have to wait and see how it goes. Guilds. Okay, guilds are necessary in World of Warcraft as well. Housing, what? Do you mean garrison? Yes, dude. World of Warcraft has this amazing housing system. It's called the garrison, guys, you know? Like, you can get your garrison. It's so amazing. It's so epic. And here's the best part, okay? Your garrison, hear me out, okay? Check this out. It's gonna be the same as everyone else's. Hey, how good is that? Huh? Don't you feel unique when your personal space is the same space as everyone else has? I know that. That's exactly what people want. People don't want to express themselves. When people build houses in real life, they all build the same fucking house. Like, if you take into consideration the richest people, they all have the exact same house. That's how it works. At least in World of Warcraft, that's how it works. Fashion, okay, I'm gonna be honest, World of Warcraft, much better transmog system than Final Fantasy XIV. I'm gonna be honest, okay? Sorry, no hate here. You guys need a wardrobe. You guys, I'm also part of the Final Fantasy XIV community and I say you guys. This is what WoW has done to my fucking brain, okay? Yeah, Final Fantasy XIV needs a wardrobe. You guys, again, you guys, what the fuck? We need an update. Yeah, this is pretty much endgame in Final Fantasy XIV. That's not to say 14 doesn't have challenging content for those looking for more traditional MMO rating
Booba!
experience. But like, the point I'm trying to make is that in WoW, the endgame focus is on harder and harder raiding and mythics, PvP, both arena, battleground, and world, with all the other things in the game existing to aid in doing so.
Do you know what the funniest part is? Unfortunately, he's wrong. Mythic Raiders are 1% of the player base. Gladiators are 1% of the player base. In WoW, you're a shitter until you clean Mythic difficulty. But even then, you will be a shitter because you're not as good as the other Mythic raiding guilds. In Final Fantasy XIV, nobody just gives a fuck anymore. Like, nobody gives a shit about these things. People just automatically assume that you're there for the fucking story, you know? World of Warcraft, the downfall of World of Warcraft was very simple. It fucked the casual player in the ass. You have to understand that the casual player is the one that's buying your shit, the one that's giving you money, not the hardcore player. Sure, the hardcore gamer is gonna play every single month and he's gonna fucking love it. Or maybe he'll stop playing at some point because he found a better game. But he's gonna be there, okay? Like, give or take, he's gonna be there. Good, now you have 1% of your community. Congratulations, dude. Congratulations. You know, it makes sense if you think about it, right? Because World of Warcraft at some point had 12 million subscribers, and now it has 1.2 million subscribers. That's 10% of the player base. So, yeah, I mean, the math stands out. Maybe he is right after all. Maybe he is correct.
In 14, the endgame focus is more diverse.
Yep.
Although there are Savage and Ultimate difficulty raids designed for those who want a more challenging experience, there's also things like building a cool guild house or crafting a special weapon.
Here's the thing, before you speak about the weapons and the guild houses, okay? Final Fantasy XIV, the difficult raids, the ultimate raids, they persist through time. You can go do UU now. You can go do Bahamut Ultimate now. You can go do all of this, Alexander now, and they still feel almost, okay, not exactly like, but almost as if it's current content. Now, in World of Warcraft, can you guys give me a reason why I would go and do Mythic Castle Nathria? I guess Transmog, right? Transmog, of course, Transmog. Old Transmog. Now, why would I do that content synced? Or, you know, same level? There is no reason. I would go with my max level character, with my massive cock out, and I would just one-shot the bosses and get the loot. So, I disagree here. Like, Final Fantasy XIV does it way, way better because their content never stagnates. You will always have a reason to go and do UU. You would always have a reason to go do Bahamut. Heck, you can do this raid how many times? Like, how many jobs do we have? You can do these raids all these times unsynced to get your weapon. That's how it goes. That's how you ensure your game remains an entire world. Now, World of Warcraft, the worst part and my biggest complaint about World of Warcraft is that it's not World of Warcraft anymore. It's Patch of Warcraft. You play the patch. At best, you play the expansion, okay? But you don't play the world anymore. Final Fantasy XIV makes sure you play the world. And it's stupid because Blizzard advertised the world back then. They said, no loading screen, the world is open, go out and explore. And now they're like, no, don't go and explore. Stay in this part. Let's not forget that the idea behind the Covenant's abilities in Shadowlands was that you would not be able to use them out of Shadowlands at start. People gave a massive backlash, and that's why Blizzard had to reconsider. Do you understand this? They could give you one, actually mostly two, extra abilities on your character that were the selling point of the expansion, and you would not be able to use them out of the fucking zones of Shadowlands. Now, how the fuck does this make sense when the game is called World of Warcraft? But enough about me, let's keep going.
From a weird boss drop, or going on treasure hunts, there's more to do than just raiding for the sake of raiding. Speaking of crafting, one of the biggest issues I have with WoW is that crafting for so long has seemed totally pointless once Looking for Raid was created. Any gear you could craft, say as a leather worker, was useless for those who could just get raid gear easily. Meanwhile, in Final Fantasy XIV, gathering and crafting is very much a...
I think that the professions stopped being as impactful as they were in Wrath of the Lich King. Maybe Kata? What do you guys think? Was it Cataclysm? I don't think Mob did it. I think No, it wasn't Cataclysm. I would have to go with Wrath of the Lich King. Because you still had to craft the Frost Resistance gear if you needed that back in Sapphiron? Yeah, the Frozen Dragon back in Extramas. Now, nobody would craft it because it was a piece easy fight. However, you could do that. Like, Professions did have a point. They did have a reason to exist back then.
A major part of the endgame experience. If you're curious about other things, PvP for example, I mean, in this case, WoW definitely wins this one. There is PvP in Final Fantasy XIV in the form of war games, and
there isn't. The PvP in Final Fantasy XIV, I'm sorry, it's dog shit. It's laggy. It's pruned as shit. And if you've played PvP in literally every other MMO, okay, maybe not in Star Wars The Old Republic, but in any other MMO, they're better than Final Fantasy XIV PvP. I'm sorry.
Many people who enjoy it.
Like, WoW did PvP combat, like, the combat, WoW does perfect, okay? Maybe not perfect, but it does very, very good. I love the new PvP, to be honest. Dude, this is clearly subjective. You can enjoy something that I don't, and that's, like, without subjective points of view, world would be a fucking boring place, okay? However, I have to go with saying that World of Warcraft combat is way better. It feels more fluid, it feels more responsive. I don't disagree with you, it does have a lot of good changes in comparison to what it did. I did not play Final Fantasy XIV PvP before the revamp. However, after the revamp, it's still nowhere near as good as World of Warcraft PvP is, in my eyes at least.
It's just that there's a wider variety and larger community.
As for the unique, I don't see that. I don't see FF14 PvP classes, the classes being unique. I see, like, it's so simplified in comparison to World of Warcraft that it's like, it's the same shit to me.
And WoW. It is, after all, part of the core concept, faction warfare. This doesn't exist in 14. There are no warring player factions. In fact, much of the story is about getting all the nations of the world on the same team. The funny thing is, as WoW attempts to add more story, the PvP they're doing makes less and less sense narratively. And that's, I mean, just the tip of the iceberg of the endgame experience. There's a lot more to talk about, but since we are talking endgame, I think we should flip it and do the starting experience.
They should stop trying to consider PvP as part of the game. They should just remove the factions and have PvP being like, more like, we have this part in the game, but it doesn't make sense lore-wise. It doesn't anymore. WoW combat baseline is better for much smoother, but class and redesign 14 has it for me. I mean, every class has very recognizable, unique roles and purposes within the system, and very well designed, just not very balanced. And yeah, faction war is that. It is, and it makes no sense. I think that Blizzard should focus more with PvP as having it in mercenary mode and having it skirmishes between two gangs and not being alliance and horde. Like, have the red team and the blue team, and that's pretty much it, you know? Change the flags, have one being the red, have one being the blue, and that's it. That's how it's done, you know? There is no reason to do that. Like, do what Final Fantasy XIV does. They ignore PvP. Like, if you do front lines, it doesn't matter if you're technically a member of the fucking Flames. It can get you into the Maelstrom if they have less people. Like, you can... It's not taken into consideration when we're talking about lore, you know? It's just there for fun. And with arenas being the main focus of the PvP, at least according to the developers, I would say that you don't have to fight the enemy faction in the arena. Gladiators fight gladiators, that's how it works. It doesn't matter if you're an elf, it doesn't matter if you're an orc, it doesn't matter if you're black, yellow, blue, purple, a fucking flying testicle that's hovering on the atmosphere. It doesn't matter.
Going back to the design philosophies of the two games, we can see differences in the premise of each and how it affects your intro into the game. In World of Warcraft, you start your experience as just one of the many faces in service of your chosen faction. Over time, your actions in defeating various threats increase your importance to the world. In Final Fantasy XIV, you are literally the Warrior of Light.
Okay, in Final Fantasy XIV, you start like a nobody, right? I wanna say this. World of Warcraft, the new revamped experience, leveling experience, heck, even the old leveling experience, I think it's better than what Final Fantasy XIV does. Like, and I have to go with this. Like, Final Fantasy XIV really needs to step their game up. They really need to step it up, because when a new player gets into FF for the first time, they see an outdated piece of shit. World of Warcraft, the Exile Switch, a good revamp. And even if we ignore this, the old world was still better. Like, it did match somewhat, like, thematically, you know?
The chosen hero from moment one. There is no denying your importance to the story. The entire narrative revolves around you. Even though initially you're not recognized as such, I mean, that's what you are.
Don't say from the first moment then, if you're not recognized immediately. Like, come on, Jesse, don't do that to me, man. Because you arrive in the destination on a fucking carriage. At least in Ul'dah, that's how it was. And you get stopped by the fucking guards because they suspect you of being some shady dealers and shit, you know? So don't give me that. Don't give me that, dude.
Quickly proving yourself to the world. From that point on, every character not only acknowledges you,
True,
but they recognize the importance of your role over theirs.
agreed.
So add that to the story being the most important element, and you'll see how this might be a daunting task for some new players. Much of the 14 starting experience
Not important
is...
to kill Ifrit. I would say that you're not important until you resist Ifrit. I don't want to say kill Ifrit. I want to say resisting him. That's the turning point, in my opinion.
It's pretty slow. World building, character introduction, lasting roughly the first 50 levels. I actually think this is one of the biggest problems Final Fantasy XIV has, as it's a hard sell to explain how phenomenal this game becomes only after you put in 40 hours. But that's exactly...
Yes, exactly. That's the biggest problem. Like, in my opinion, that's the biggest problem Final Fantasy XIV has. You're gonna love the game after 50 hours. You're gonna love the game after X amount of time. Now, in my opinion, if you start in Limsa Lominsa, you're going to enjoy the game much more than if you started in Ul'dah. At least that's how it was for me. And starting with a character that is not a black mage, please don't start as a thaumaturge. Do yourself a favor, don't start as a thaumaturge. Don't start as a paladin. It's a bad idea. Start like as a summoner, start like as, I don't know, whatever the fuck. Just don't go with black mage and fucking paladin, okay? However, okay, paladin maybe it's a bit better, but don't start as a black mage. Ul'dah isn't the problem, it's being a thaumaturge. Okay, sure. I think they need to revamp it. I think a lot of the initial quests need to be revamped. I'm not going to bash on ARR. I think ARR is one of the best expansions. Well, not expansions, you know, it is an expansion. If you think that 1.0 was the biggest game, I would say that 2.0 is an expansion. Now, that expansion was redesigned everything, but still it was an expansion, right? So, I'm not going to go against ARR. I find ARR to be one of the best expansions out there. I really loved it. I would probably rank it my third favorite expansion. But here's the problem, right? In World of Warcraft, you can say that this is my third favorite expansion, and it's like ages and miles apart from your first favorite expansion, okay? I really loved Stormblood. I really loved Shadowbringers. I really loved ARR. I really loved Heavensward. Heavensward is my least favorite expansion. Yeah, I know, sue me, what the fuck? I don't give a shit. It's how it is for me. But they are all in S or A tier category, I would say. Maybe B? No, we don't have B tier categories. I think like every Final Fantasy XIV expansion has been A or S tier.
Exactly what I was told, and what I have told others. Because it's true. The strong connection to narrative.
Gridania was magical, that's
experience.
true. Like, I did Gridania on my archer. I did not even start there. I did Gridania on my archer, and the music, it was just fucking relaxing me so good. Like, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the change of scenery from going from Limsa Lominsa. I did like on my Nyxia character, I did Limsa, then I did Gridania, and then I did Ul'dah because I had already done Ul'dah on my cat girl, right? On my trial character. Ugh. I don't want to talk about that. I don't want to.
For new players who may have friends playing or seen an amazing moment from a recent expansion, but they can't play it themselves without playing through 100 hours of story, or
it's not 100 hours of story. Don't lie. It's more like 500 hours of story.
Paying for a skip and finding themselves completely disconnected from the plot. And that is a real shame, because the game uses all of that story and setup to build out the rest of the world. So if you skip over the starting experience, the amount of stuff you miss is mind-boggling. And because the story is so well told, and all the characters and locations and factions, etc., are so perfectly fit into the puzzle that is the main plot, that when twists happen, they make perfect sense.
I think that one of the ways to fix it is to put voice acting in ARR content. If they put voice acting, I think it would be much more smooth for today's standards, because ARR came out a long time ago, right? So it feels archaic. So they need to trim it, change it, and rebuild it. That's what I'm saying. But voice acting, I believe, would be mandatory.
When reveals are made, it's like, oh yeah, of course. All because of that level 1 through 50 experience laying the foundation.
Yes.
And as I've said, I've experienced both ends of this. Years ago when the game first came out, I gave it a shot, and around level 40 was totally burnt out. It wasn't until I returned last year looking for something new that I gave the game a second chance on the recommendation of a friend.
I have burned out in Final Fantasy XIV. I'm gonna be honest. I have burned out. It is because the task seems daunting. You get so much content, and you're trying, like, if you have the WoW mentality and the WoW mindset, you're not thinking of it as a fucking journey. You're like, when do I get to Heavensward? Because everyone's like, the Heavensward is the good shit, the Heavensward is the good shit, the Heavensward is the good shit. And you're like, I need to get to Heavensward. I need to get to Heavensward. I need to get to Heavensward. And that burns you out. I think that people shoot new players in the foot. They kneecap them by telling them that everything goes well in Heavensward. I disagree. I think ARR has very good shit. You should tell the guy, you know what? ARR has good moments. It gets better, but ARR is a very good expansion. ARR is a very good game. You should probably play it. Calls of Bahamut needs to be mandatory. You lose the entirety of Alizé character progression in Heavensward if you skip on finding Calls of Bahamut. Like, they are important. It is very important. Maybe the other raids are less important, but it is important. Like, it doesn't make sense. If you go and find Alizé in Heavensward without having done coils, you're like, who the fuck is that one? Because you're used to Alizé being just, this fucking kid. And during Calls of Bahamut, she matures way more than Alphinaud. So, I don't know, man. Like, we need to stop saying that. We need to stop saying that, hey, Heavensward, super excited. No. Shut the fuck up and tell the guy, my friend, play 1 hour a day. And just do story. Don't focus on anything else. 1 hour a day. If you're not feeling it, don't play. Go out. Stop. You don't have to have this pushing mentality.
I'm so glad I listened, because for a fan of story like me, what this game offers is a fantastic experience.
Yep.
Sadly, the reason behind Final Fantasy XIV, A Realm Reborn slow start, can be traced back to its origins as a reboot of the disaster that was the original Final Fantasy XIV. The budget was small, the timetable was short, and it shows. It isn't until the later patches of A Realm Reborn and the release of the first expansion, Heavensward, that the game truly shines. The production value skyrockets, the writing is less long-winded, the voice actors change, just about everything is better than where it started. And universally,
it was a dog shit ass garbage game, the worst MMO from a AAA studio to have ever been released. That's what Final Fantasy XIV was. And then this guy, this fucking god among men, steps in and he's like, I fix it. And everyone's like, who the fuck are you? And he's like, and nobody. What's your experience in Final Fantasy XIV? None. What the fuck are you gonna do here? Save you guys. And that's what he fucking did. Yeah, it broke Square Enix. It almost broke Square Enix. Like, this is the stupidest shit. Like, dude, take into consideration what Square Enix is. Like, it's a fucking Goliath. It's a massive company. It's one of the biggest Japanese companies out there. It's one of the biggest companies out there. It has successes after successes, and of course it has a lot of failures, Is he fixed 1.0 this amount while making 2.0? Yes, and he still decided to burn it. That's the stupidest. Like, this is what I love in this guy, He's like, hey, you guys like what I did, right? I fixed it for you, right? And everyone's like, yeah, it's much better, yeah, fuck it, burn it. Like, this guy, I've said it before, this guy has a hump back there, okay? He's watching bent over. He cannot walk straight because his massive balls drag his weight down. This guy is the epitome of a fucking developer, of a fucking leader. I've watched this fucking documentary. I would never react to it on stream because we're gonna be here for 5 hours if I do. I just can't shut up, right? And this guy, dude, what he was saying, what he did, it's impossible. Like, what he did was fucking impossible. For his boss, the drugs asunder. True.
Everyone acknowledges this fact, which is why I assume the free trial, with memes and all, includes Heavensward. If you're gonna keep playing the game, it's the first expansion that's gonna get you. What's totally
No, it's not. Jesse, fuck you. I like your video. I really appreciate it, and I will keep reacting to it. Thank you for the video. Thank you for this. Thank you for giving back to the community. But fuck you. Binding Coils of Bahamut is better than Heavensward. Give me the hate. I don't give a shit. Binding Coils of Bahamut is better than Heavensward.
What's insane about all of that is only by sticking with it can you then truly appreciate the slow burn A Realm Reborn was and all the ideas it introduces that later become very important. It's like when your parents gave you some advice as a kid and you didn't listen, and now you're 30 and you're like,
oh,
damn,
shit.
that was good advice.
Yep.
I should have listened.
Okay, a small story for King Shiny right here. When I was a kid, I was not really listening to what my parents told me, to the piece of advice. So my father, not that I care, but you're such a simp for coils. I'm such a simp for coils because it's the best fucking content I've done to this fucking day. As I was saying, my father knew that I was a renegade. I was a stupid ass kid, you know, like I would always go against him. Okay, so he's like, don't do it. I'm like, I'ma do it. Like, don't do it. I'ma do it. Okay, do it. And then I would do it. And I'm like, Dad, I did what you told me not to do. Now, my dad knows the outcome. He's like, really? How did it go for you? I'm like, ha! Boy, that was a mistake, you know? And that's how my father taught me. That's how my mother taught me. They're like, my father always, don't smoke. Okay, it's bad for you. So during my teenage years, I came home with a package of cigarettes, you know? I was like, I have cigarettes. My father was like, so? Like, nothing, I just smoke. My mother was like, you should tell your father, you should tell your father. My father is like, so? Like, but I have cigarettes, you know? Like, I smoke. I don't give a shit. I told you that it's bad for you. You want fucking cancer, go do cigarettes. The phase lasted for 1 to 2 weeks. After 1 to 2 weeks, I never smoked again. That's how parenting was for me, dude.
But again, how do you sell that to people? Meanwhile, the WoW starting experience is much more welcoming to new players.
Yes, it is.
They keep updating it and changing it. A thing Final Fantasy XIV can't do without damaging the plot it's trying to set up. Because Warcraft doesn't concern itself with this.
I would say that World of Warcraft is better in attracting new players, but it's really, really bad when it comes to maintaining them, while Final Fantasy XIV is the exact opposite. It's a tough sell at start, but after you get in, you're in. Like, I think Final Fantasy XIV sounds more like a cult than an MMO. Because you need to be into the fucking cult, you know? You need to advance the stages. You need to become this fucking warlord or something in the cult in order for you to be considered. You know, and then you can't leave. World of Warcraft is the exact opposite. They're like, come in, we have candy. Come in, we have candy. And then you eat the candy. And then they give you, we have more candy. You're like, I already had candy. And you leave.
They now offer multiple ways to level, a special starting zone designed to teach new players. They have streamlined the process of getting your character to the end game, which, as we discussed, is a core design philosophy. But this means, depending on...
Now, if you are a new player, because this might be a bit misleading, if you are a new player, you don't have this choice to play throughout all these things. You need to play BFA. You can only do that campaign. You cannot go do Legion, you cannot do the Iron Horde, you cannot do any of the expansions, okay? So in a way, I'm not sure if this is a proper representation of what exactly is happening in World of Warcraft. If you're a veteran and you have already one character in max level and you have done the story and shit, then you can select the time walking campaigns, okay, of Chromie. However, the guy that comes in, he doesn't have this choice.
When you started playing, your story experience in World of Warcraft could be entirely different from another player.
No, not anymore. Now it's streamlined. You have to do BFA.
Moments I may have experienced years ago are no longer in the game, making it so things that bind players and keep them engaged in the game are not story, but it's progression systems, guild dynamics, and faction conflict, which I think explains why people enjoy playing Classic, as it has all the things I just listed, but also a shared sense of existing in the same world, which I feel like, I think many of you would say, the current iteration of WoW does not have.
No, the current iteration of WoW, do you know how bad the current iteration of WoW is? Okay, World of Warcraft's selling point was no loading screen back then. Shadowlands is the first expansion that has loading screen between zones. That's how detached from actual World of Warcraft the recent expansion is.
The way to look at this is how new content is delivered. If we look at the two most recent completed content cycles in both WoW and 14, the picture we get of everything I've been talking about becomes more clear. In WoW, the new content starts with the release of a trailer.
Yes.
A big budget, stunningly well made, sometimes
True.
shocking reveal.
True.
It's usually a way for Blizzard to show the first major inciting story moment. This is something like Sylvanas breaking the Helm of Domination,
like something of a
or
teaser.
Deathwing destroying the world. Then, before launch, there's a book and maybe some short stories about major characters involved in the next expansion. We'll get a pre-patch event.
How do you think Bob is gonna buy his yacht, huh?
And then the expansion will release. And for the most part, every WoW expansion follows a similar formula. We get a short burst of main story before pausing for leveling content and eventually returning to the main plot. Then a major raid is released, and the story for the main plot continues as we get a series of patches culminating in the last patch of the expansion.
It doesn't
and the
really
showdown with the big
continue.
bad.
A lot of times, the story between patches has been making no sense. Okay? How the fuck did Mist of Pandaria? I loved Mist of Pandaria, okay? How did it make sense? Mogushan vaults into Terrace of the Endless Springs and Heart of Fear. What? Terrace of the Endless Springs and Heart of Fear into Throne of Thunder. What? Throne of Thunder into Siege of Orgrimmar. What? It doesn't make sense.
Then the cycle begins again with a new trailer. Because of its heavily story-based nature, almost all of the content in 14
This makes the most sense with story. Did it? The Isle of Thunder came out of the blue. I don't see that, man. You have to do reputation to get the story, though. You always have to do X, Y, or Z to get the story.
is delivered in game. So in the previous expansion's fourth major patch, you'll get hints of a new story. By the time the fifth major patch rolls around, you'll have more information
About the new
important
expansion.
details or new jobs will be hinted at.
Yep.
And then, around the same time, we get the trailer. Unlike WoW, it's not a single moment, but a series of vignettes and a hint of things to come in the next expansion. Then it
A
launches.
teaser of the next expansion. See, this is what Final Fantasy XIV does really, really good. No books, no extras. Just play the game, and you get everything.
Launch, the main story is experienced and completed throughout the leveling process. The first major patch and so on are there to wrap up loose ends, tell new smaller stories either via raid or a series of max level trials, or introduce new areas that serve as a way to grind out special weapon skins.
Okay,
and
the
then,
Ultima.
by the end of the third major patch, the story of the expansion is wrapped up. And then the fourth patch continues the trend of hinting at what will be in the new expansion.
Dude, my Lady Gaia right here, man. Okay, nice.
And I'm sure the obvious difference comes down to the initial design choice by the two dev teams. The reason the Warcraft patch cycle is what it is to keep players engaged longer. So if you're a fan of story, for example, you need to keep with it through all the patches to see the end.
Or you stop playing, and then you come back, and then you do it all together. Or you read the summary on Reddit.
While Final Fantasy XIV, designed to deliver story most of all, gives you a completed one at launch, then adds additional adventures afterwards.
Yes.
The most notable difference in gameplay between the two, I think, is to start, the global cooldown in Final Fantasy XIV is 2.5 seconds.
That's not the biggest
So when you're
point.
level 10, for example,
that's not the biggest
and you only
difference.
have 3 abilities, it seems like there's a lot of downtime. Later on, as you unlock other off-cooldown
That's not the biggest
skills,
difference, because if someone stops playing at level 10, then again, yeah, I guess I can see his point, but that's not the main point, the main problem. The main problem in the gameplay is the 500 milliseconds of lag.
or increase your stats to lower your GCD. This changes, but for the start, it definitely feels pretty slow. This also translates into differences between the spell and ability rotations of the two games. Warcraft is more reactionary.
Yes.
Build up a bar or wait for a crit to trigger an ability, while Final Fantasy XIV is more proactive, where the player weaves a pattern of combos together to create a string of pre-planned attacks. Even the procs in Final Fantasy XIV are associated with patterns and planning. Combat in WoW is like a street brawl, and Final Fantasy XIV is like a dance. And because 14 is
A slow and many times boring dance.
more of a dance, the combat is more spectacular, and the spell effects are way more flashy than those in WoW. And for the most part, spell effects aren't necessarily designed with large groups in mind, unlike Warcraft.
Yes.
So when you're in a 24-man raid and all the effects are going off, it can sometimes feel blinding. So much so that there are options in 14
To tune it down.
decrease or turn them off
Yes.
for other players.
I didn't know
Speaking
that.
of making changes to the game, 14 has a pretty amazing HUD customization
Yes,
of the
they
base
do.
game. While you can do a lot more with the various add-ons in WoW, 14 gives you enough tools to customize your experience so that you don't feel the absence of add-on support.
I want to say something here. Even though I believe that Final Fantasy XIV's UI edit is still better than the new UI editing we get in Dragonflight, WoW did step up their game, okay? So we have to recognize that. We have to give that to them, you know? However, Final Fantasy XIV still does much better work when it comes to UI
This UI customization allows for the use of a controller, which the game was designed with in mind, allowing for cross-platform play between PC and PlayStation. This allows for some pretty fun player interface options and looks, letting you clutter your screen with as much information or as little as you want.
Yes.
And we can't forget about the accessibility of players who simply can't use a mouse and keyboard.
Oh.
Accessibility can be found in 14 in the form of
Dude, look at this. This is so good, okay? Now, this guy, okay? This guy would have such a big difficulty playing playing World of Warcraft, okay? Or playing on a keyboard. Yet, look, he made it fucking work, dude. All because Final Fantasy XIV supports this fucking controller. Like, this is good. This is what inclusivity feels to me, okay? This is what inclusivity means to me. You don't have to create a character to give you like an agenda, a store agenda or something, you know? Final Fantasy XIV is inclusive to this guy. How? He can play the game. Why? They support the controller that he can use. Just like that.
Simply can't use a mouse and keyboard. Accessibility can be found in 14 in the form of universal language on markers and effects. Sure that as you've watched this video, you've noticed in the Final Fantasy XIV segments the same markers on the ground over and over and over again, to the point where players can have some idea of what's coming their way based on the effect. They understand what's about to happen and what's required. Another major gameplay difference, which is probably what we should have started with, is the ability for one character to play every job or class in the game and switch between them.
This was such a good thing to come to, such a pleasant surprise. At start, I was skeptical because it was used in World of Warcraft, and I was like, what if I want to play another character? And people were like, hey, dude, trust me, you don't want to play another character. The story is what matters. Trust me on that. And I trusted them, and they were right. Like, that's exactly how it happened. Like, I have almost every single job at or above level 70.
If you choose Black Mage to start, for example, like I did, and you end up hating it, like I did, then you can switch to another.
This guy gets it. Thank you. Thank you. Don't start as a thaumaturge. Don't do that to yourself.
Job and try something new. Fall in love with something new, like a Red Mage, or a Warrior, or a Dragoon, like I did. And 14 is designed with this one character leveling multiple things in mind. WoW, on the other hand, is designed around having to create multiple alts to try different classes.
Yep.
But unlike 14, each of these new characters has some sort of racial ability or special action, and 14 doesn't have that. It doesn't mean you can't level alts in 14, but
you don't have
necessary to experience all the game has to offer. Warcraft does, however, have more overall combat diversity, with the option to choose talents and spec out your character in fun, weird ways. Although a lot of the time, people just look up what the best is.
Exactly. Don't give me the talents as in, like, you know, you can create this unique build. Yeah, but if it doesn't work, why would you create it? Why would you fuck yourself in the ass? It doesn't make sense, you know? I think that World of Warcraft's leveling system and the whole character creating thing is archaic. It should give you the possibility or the ability to have 2 or 3 classes at one character, or have all professions in one character. I don't see why you can't be a leather worker, a tailor, and a skinner. Or you can't be a jewel crafter, and an engineer, and a miner, and a leather worker, and a herbalist. Why not?
Also, the classes in WoW seem more wild and vibrant compared to that of Final Fantasy XIV. There are no Demon Hunter or Brewmaster analog, for example.
Dude. There's a fucking Reaper. You guys have Reapers. We guys have Reapers. That's the best job that every fucking game has, except for Druid, okay? Druid is good. Druid is the unique one. No other game has fucking found
it does have a Blue Mage, but it's treated as more of a joke class with wacky overpowered abilities that isn't really allowed in current content. Also, WoW really nails raiding and PvP. It's what the game was designed for. And
exactly. They nail PvP. It's always imbalanced. So that's like super good, you know?
Very well. The raids in WoW are larger and more intricate. The PvP is more varied and complex. But Final Fantasy XIV does something very fun with its dungeons, raids, and trials by including synced, unsynced, and minimum item level settings. You can change the difficulty of a dungeon, for example, to be exactly how it was when you first ran it in your low-level gear, or to cheese the hell out of it at max level. The last thing of note is that when crafting or gathering, 14 is much more visual and complex.
And
than
you
WoW.
have rotations,
It's not just clicking a
dude.
node. They're actually separate jobs, separate skills, separate stories, and separate gear that you can play without ever doing the main story. Although you'd need it to unlock some zones, there are whole events built around using these crafting and gathering.
Players literally, you guys, the fucking Final Fantasy 14 community restored Ishgard. And now we can go and buy houses in Ishgard. You guys are the reason, the low reason. You guys are why it makes sense. Players were implemented into the fucking lore. They were integrated into the fucking lore. What you guys did, what you created. This is like so good.
Jobs. Building a city, for example.
Yep.
And as I mentioned before, crafting actually makes viable gear, unlike
Yes.
WoW, whose crafters are mostly useless once
Yes.
people can do looking for raid.
Yes.
You're gonna get tired of hearing me say it, you probably already are, but story plays a major role in the aesthetics of 14 versus WoW as well. Both games look very good. Let me be clear.
Let me be clear. Final Fantasy 14, in comparison to WoW, in most zones looks like dog shit. Okay? Don't show me Boomerang or, Amarang, okay? Next to fucking, what is this one? This one is Ardenweald. Come on. I've been in there. I've leveled through both zones. Now, maybe, just maybe, I am biased. And why would I be biased? Because my eyes have been accustomed to look at World of Warcraft art style for 14 years, whereas they have been looking at Final Fantasy 14 art style for just 2 years. Or maybe 3? No, it's 2 years, okay? So, I can definitely accept that I might be wrong here. But to me, World of Warcraft looks so much better than Final Fantasy 14.
But they each have their own visual style. WoW is slightly more cartoony and exaggerated. Everyone has giant muscles, even the fat dudes and the gnomes. 14 is a bit more subdued in all regards. Even the colors are more toned down.
Yes.
Some might call the character designs a bit anime. Meanwhile, the WoW character designs are more diverse than 14 as well. Trolls,
Why
undead,
do you show the
humans,
Vulpera, though?
pandas. In 14, it's more like human, tiny human, cat human, horny human.
Hey, what do you mean horny human? Hold up. Wait a minute. You ain't gonna do my Zayla like that. Horned human. Not horny human. And we're not humans, okay? We, Zayla, are superior to everyone else. And we are dragonkin. Okay, I know we're lizards, okay? But yeah, no. We're not horny. Some
The
of us
biggest
are.
difference I've noticed comes down to 14's emotive characters and WoW's wider array of visually diverse zones. These emotive characters make it so 14 can easily work in numerous in-game cutscenes and match the voices. In order to do the same thing in WoW, custom crafted scenes are made,
Yeah.
which take time and limit the number that can be included. That's not to say that Warcraft characters can't show emotion, or Final Fantasy doesn't have visually diverse zones, but each does their thing better. WoW can get more wild with their visual design because they aren't limited by players on older
Dude.
consoles. The
The
PS3
Nathrus, the only guy with good lore and the only guy with good style in fucking Shadowlands. Everything else sucked dick. The Nathrus was cool though. Okay? As for the emotes, I think that if you want to roleplay, for real, if you want an MMORPG to RP, for the RP element, go play FF14. Ignore WoW, okay? FF14 is so much better, and it has so much variety, and it has so much more shit, that it's day and night when it comes to comparison with World of Warcraft. You can't even compare them. Like, Final Fantasy 14 is up here, WoW, you can't see it.
version of 14 was still available until 2017, which means the PS4 version will be limiting players for a few years still.
Yeah.
Because its limits are fewer and the devs can update and change their graphics more frequently, WoW can create a more wild, outlandish, and visually striking environment for players to explore. And because 14 was started with storytelling in mind, characters' faces are
fuck is
designed
his
to
face?
show a wider array of emotions. WoW, on the other hand, added story after the fact, so the game wasn't designed to have a lot of close-up facial animations. So, as they add new in-game cinematics, many of the ones we're getting now
This cinematic
seem to have
feels
these weird
unfinished, by the way.
flappy jaw yapping
Yep.
things going on. And that stands out from the
This seems so unfinished.
other higher quality cinematic stuff we're used to getting in WoW.
Final Fantasy 14 has better music than World of Warcraft. Both games have very, very good music, but Final Fantasy 14 has way better music than World of Warcraft. Like, it's not even in the same page. Soken, dude, my god, my one and only fucking hero, man.
The music of these games is also another thing worth pointing out, as it again is a perfect example of my original thesis. Like the graphic design of the games, they both have good music. But similar to WoW's visual style, Final Fantasy XIV's musical style is far more diverse and wild and fun. In Warcraft, music is mostly ambient, used to set the mood of a zone or a dungeon.
Why do you have to play Grizzly Hills or show Grizzly Hills? Huh? Naming way. Dude. They know. This is one of the few worthy zones for music. Final Fantasy XIV music just kills it. Ambient music is good, sure, but no. Final Fantasy XIV, you can't. You just cannot. Nier music, best. Stormblood music, best. All of it. All of fucking it. Dude, I can listen. When I want to listen to a song, I listen to Final Fantasy XIV music. Okay? For WoW, it is just, I will listen to WoW's music when I'm playing World of Warcraft, okay? But Final Fantasy XIV, I will actually listen to it as if it's a song, you know? Revelations. Even the Kugane Castle one, which has no lyrics, I love it, you know? The Omega thing, Shinryu, Suzaku, Answers, the Dragon Song, is it called Dragon Song? You know, the fucking song for Heavensward, you know? Shadowbringers, dude, the Shadowbringers, holy shit, the theme, man, like, it's insane. Do you know what the two songs that come to my mind for World of Warcraft are? The epic that ones I really love? Arthas My Son, back in Wrath of the Lich King, and Nila Kryn for Anduin theme, back in Legion. After that, yeah. I mean, sure, Boralus has good music. I cannot. Soken is a god.
Usually something catchy, repeating, and not all that intrusive.
Yep.
But many times, because of its generalized nature, there are moments where it might not fit the events that are on screen in an epic boss fight, for example.
That's true.
There's plenty of times I remember struggling through a raid to get to the final boss, and the music was pretty much the same as when I started the raid. Meanwhile, in 14, because the music, like everything else, is connected to the story, it's more moment to moment than WoW. Again,
what the fuck is
it's
this
not
person?
like WoW doesn't do story moment music, or Final Fantasy XIV doesn't have
I haven't
ambient
fought
zone
this person,
themes.
have I? I don't
But
think I have.
they both do their own thing way more. Final Fantasy XIV has musical themes for sad moments and happy moments and silly moments and tense moments. It sometimes even tells a story. There are theme songs and leitmotifs.
What?
And
How I killed
more
this?
importantly, battle music.
Aiden Final Fight. Okay, I forgot about it. Dude, yes, now we're doing it, man. Dude. Exactly. Suzaku. Play Answers, you fucking piece of shit. Come on. Or Titan. Or Tsukuyomi. Hades, of course. There's my guy. Dude, this is good music, man. Jesus.
It's just so good. Nothing makes wiping or learning a fight more tolerable than a catchy song in the background.
The tweening,
Truthfully,
there we go,
Final
dude.
Fantasy
Yep.
XIV just has a larger variety of music and uses it better than WoW, which
does.
is crazy because I remember listening to the soundtrack for WoW Legion and thinking how great it was, only to find out there were some songs not even used in the game, or if they were, I don't remember or missed it.
Yep.
I recall multiple versions of Anduin's theme, only for him to barely be involved in the main Legion storyline, and his theme to show up like maybe once or twice. That's so crazy to know they have all this amazing talent at Blizzard making music, and they don't even use it all? And remember Elite Tauren Chieftain? Final Fantasy XIV has a band of devs called the Primals. Except they don't just do meme songs, they play like all the hits from the game.
And they play good.
Lyrics and all. And let me tell you, they got some bangers. The difference.
They have a lot of bangers, and they have heroes among them. Okay? They have heroes among them. Jesus Christ, man. Every single time I see Soken, I don't know why, like, I smile, man. Like, this guy's existence makes me smile. His presence in the area makes me smile. He's such a nerd. He is. He's such a fucking nerd. All of these motherfuckers are such nerds, you know? And I love it. They appeal to me.
difference is, while ETC was phased out of live events,
Yes.
the primals are the highlight that everyone looks forward to. It's as if the WoW community thought ETC was kind of lame, and Final Fantasy XIV fans are like, more primals, please.
People will go to the Primals fucking concerts regardless of whether there is a fan fest or not. Like, they don't give a shit.
Last thing to talk about, and
The elephant in the room, the community, right? Okay. Final Fantasy XIV. Better people overall. Okay, like when it comes to not being pieces of shit. And if they are toxic, they are positively toxic. Like, they can be too positive. There is such thing as too much positivity. It sounds like a cult sometimes. But WoW community? Ah.
I'm sure it won't be controversial at all, the communities.
Yes.
I've been in the WoW community long enough to have formed a pretty substantial theory about it.
Me too, 14 years.
I know I'm gonna get lots of crap for this one, but I think the general notion is that it's pretty toxic. Yes, your personal guild might be awesome, but generally, I think we can all agree there are high levels of toxicity in the WoW community.
In World of Warcraft, you either are a god player or a dogshit ass garbage or a piece of shit. That's what you are. You're either a god at the game or a piece of shit. There is no in between. Okay? They're like, who the fuck is this fucking loser? This fucking idiot, you know? And everyone's just fucking judging you by the result, by the outcome. Like, that's it. Like, I don't know, dude. Like, it's so hostile, especially towards new players. World of Warcraft is so hostile, so against them, you know? No wonder, like, why this game doesn't have new people. There are a bunch more reasons about why the game doesn't have more people, actually. But one of the reasons is the community.
And I believe this stems from the nature of the game itself. WoW is based in conflict. A game where two factions are pitted against each other from the beginning, so players already have an established enemy or other to focus their ire on. It is thematically ingrained in the community culture. And not only is player versus player part of the game, but so is competition on a PvE level.
I disagree that this is the problem. When the game and the systems of the game fuck you in the ass day after day, it makes you less and less inclined to be fucking happy. In Final Fantasy XIV, you have a reason to log in if you want. If you don't want to log in, the reason immediately disappears. Do you want to play for 1 hour? You can play for 1 hour, you can do the story. You want to play for 2 hours? You can play for 2 hours, you can do some raids. You want to play, what do you want to do? You can decide on what you want to do. However, in World of Warcraft, the systems and the obligatory content forces you to be in places that you don't want to be. For example, if you're a raider and you want to be a hardcore raider or you want to be competitive, you need to do Mythic Plus. It's not about if you want to, it's about if you need to. And you need to do Mythic Plus. Like, the World First Raiding Guilds, what did they do? At the start of Castlanathria, they did a lot of PvP. They were boosted by his guildids who were multi-glads and shit. Now, why did they do that? Because the PvP gear was best in slot and deterministic for a lot of classes. So that's what they went ahead and did. Furthermore, systems like Mythic Plus, where if you don't time the key gets depleted and gets removed, and the guy that just fucking did it decided it's a massive waste of time. Like, it sucks. Like, his key gets downgraded. You get one less loot, but okay, let's say that you don't do Mythic Plus for loot, okay? Let's screw the loot, okay? You guys just wasted your time. Because you're not going to time the key, it's not going to count towards the achievement, which is like 2x timed keys and above. It's going to be super duper bad. Final Fantasy XIV doesn't have that. You don't get fucked in the ass for participating in Final Fantasy XIV in any game, okay? In World of Warcraft, if you partake in a BG and you lose the BG, you get 0 conquest points. Unless it's like super duper close. If you partake in an arena and you lose the arena, you get 0 arena points. If you get in a Mythic Plus and you don't time it, you get, like, it doesn't work. Like, you haven't timed it. It doesn't count for your fucking, you know, like, your Raider IO considers like shit. The in-game thing doesn't count it as the weekly achievement. Not the weekly, sorry. As the achievement for plus 15s in all dungeons. If you try to kill the last boss and you get 2%, but you don't kill the last boss, it doesn't really matter. It's as if you haven't killed the boss. Like, you will never get the loot from the last boss if you don't kill the last boss. Whereas Final Fantasy XIV, you can get full gear just by fucking doing the content, okay? Even if you don't kill like one raid or something, you will have enough tombstones to go buy full gear. The thing, what I'm trying to say here is that The game itself is toxic towards the community, towards the World of Warcraft players. And if the World of Warcraft players get fucked repeatedly, it makes sense that they're more salty because they feel the need that they feel like you wasted their time. They feel like they have to do X, Y, or Z. Whereas Final Fantasy XIV is about wanting to do X, Y, or Z. And that's the biggest difference between those two MMOs in general, and that's what you see in the community. Final Fantasy XIV will rush to defend the game. I don't know why you would defend the game. You don't have to defend the game, okay? If someone calls it garbage, you can tell them, hey, that's your opinion. I don't give a fuck. Final Fantasy XIV players go super defensive when they're talking about FF14 as if it's a part of themselves. It's not. It doesn't matter. If it's good, if it's shit, it doesn't matter. It's a very good game, though, okay? But the way the game treats them makes them like that, makes them overprotective of the game itself. In World of Warcraft, I can tell you, right now, the worst flaming that World of Warcraft gets is from the WoW gamers.
With world firsts and server firsts and more at a macro level, and then tools like DPS meters at a micro level to determine who is the best in the current party. Everyone is judging everyone at all times in Warcraft. It can feel overbearing. Even WoW's more cooperative events can seem like competition between players.
I mean, look, people will always look who has the biggest dick. Like, if you go to the hardcore of the hardcore encounters, I'm going to assume that most people have the DPS meter in Final Fantasy XIV as well. But even if they don't, they know who's the piece of
Players
shit.
are in the game longer and learn more.
Like, you can't go and do savage content if you're dog shit at the fucking game. You can't go do extreme content if you're dog shit at the fucking game, if you don't know how your rotation works, okay? You're not going to hit the DPS meters, the DPS requirement. So I'm not sure if this is the case. Like, there will always be the guy that is the best. It's not a bad thing, by the way. It's not a bad thing to have healthy competition. The problem with World of Warcraft is that the competition is not the part that the game focuses on. The friction, that's the worst part, is between the game and the players, not between players themselves.
Think they know more, biases form, opinions, valid or otherwise, take root, and soon the forums are littered with waste. You know, toxic.
Yes.
14, at least in my experience, has been different. And
Yes.
it's hard to explain because, sure, there must be toxicity in the community. I've heard of it. I've never seen it. And
I have. There was one guy that was a piece of shit in a dungeon. I think it was... Fuck. Which is the dungeon's name that has this fucking dragon as the last boss and he spews poison breath and he summons these poison pools? I think it was back in ARR, the boss. I don't remember. But this guy was obnoxious. He was a piece of shit to me. He was a piece of shit to the healer. He was a piece of shit to the entire fucking group, okay? However, I made a ticket. 1 hour passes. I get a response. In-game response. The GM himself tells me about what happened. I know what you're talking about. Okay, yeah. The GM tells me what's gonna happen. I'm like, it's okay, dude. Thank you for replying. I would not expect the fucking GM to respond to me. Why? Because in World of Warcraft, every single time you do a ticket, you know what happens? They're gonna wait for you to log off, and then they're gonna like, hey, I'm sorry, man. I tried to catch you online, but you weren't online, so we had to communicate offline. Every single issue you have, they fucking do it like this. Why? Well, I suspect, this is a speculation on my behalf, okay? GMs in Blizzard, you guys know this, it's common knowledge by this point, are massively underpaid to the extent that if you live in California and you work in Blizzard, you barely manage, you barely make it out there. And they are overworked as shit, so you have this X amount of work to do in Y amount of time, alright? They are understaffed. The fucking GMs are bloated. They don't have enough time to bother with one guy because, like, in 2 minutes they have to solve 50 tickets. And if they don't, their metrics go down. If their metrics go down, they're gonna be fired. Or they're gonna lose, I don't know, whatever the fuck bonuses they lose. Because, like, previous years, they got a bonus in fucking in-game currency or something. Like, they could get a fucking discount in buying Blizzard games. Yes, that's where we're at in Blizzard, okay? So, what I'm trying to get here is that Final Fantasy XIV has some toxicity. I have experienced it, but I have also experienced how good the GMs are. Like, the guy immediately just fucking rushed in and responded, and he's like, I can't tell you what's gonna happen, but you can be certain that the player is gonna be punished. And I'm like, I don't want to know what's gonna happen. I'm good. Thank you for responding to me. He's like, you're welcome, dude. Have a nice day. You know, like wholesome moments. Wholesome moments. Like it was super down to earth, super effective. Never have I ever done a Final Fantasy XIV ticket and I did not receive the answer. Heck, I would actually go as far as to make a fucking Final Fantasy XIV ticket just to say hello to a random GM and tell them that they rock and that they should be happy. But I don't want to waste their fucking time. That's how positive my experience was. Blizzard, let's leave that story for another time because it's going to be a big story.
Maybe that's streamer privilege. Maybe it's just I'm very lucky. I don't know. But most people, if you ask, will tell you how nice and wonderful and kind the 14 community is.
Yes.
But it's also jarring. If you're a WoW player coming to the Final Fantasy XIV community, there's a lot to understand that's different.
There is, and many times you assume that people are sarcastic. At start, when I started playing the game, even though Billy had told me that, you know, the community is super nice, my brain, the moment I heard some comment about, it was a positive comment, you know, like, hey man, good job. I was like, this guy's talking shit, you know? Is this guy talking fucking shit to me now? Is this guy being sarcastic? That's what I was accustomed to.
Different. Let me give you a great example.
It wasn't, of course. They were nice people.
Mobs.
Yes.
Or in the case of 14, ranked mobs. In WoW, if you see a rare monster, you find a way to kill that thing as fast as you can, you grab friends, you grab guildies, you want that special drop. In Final Fantasy XIV, that's frowned upon by most of the community.
Yep.
I found this out one day when I saw a rare and asked my free company, my guild, for help. And they were like, dude, wait for the hunt train. And I was like, what? What the hell are you talking about? It's right here, right now. And they explained, that's not how the community does it.
Yes.
When all the rares are finally spawned, hunt trains form, and like 100 players move from zone to zone, killing them, each getting credit for the kills and any sort of rewards. This idea baffled me. I was like, I am here right now. What if I'm not online later? I have to pass up the kill just cause? And they were like, yeah.
Yeah, like pretty much like this, you know, like you are one person and you have to put yourself over the entire community. You're not gonna do that. Fuck you. In World of Warcraft, you know what's gonna happen? The moment, okay, like the spawn is not out there. It hasn't even phased yet. The moment it appears, dead. And you make sure, like you could invite, like now in World of Warcraft, in Modern WoW, you can invite players to do it. You can actually, you don't even have to invite players to do it. You can just wait a few seconds and the kill is going to count for everyone present, right? You're not gonna wait. Fuck them. Like the moment it's out, dead. The moment it's fucking out. People might be spamming in trade chat or in general chat. Wait for me, please don't kill, please wait. Nah-uh. I ain't wasting my time because you are in the other side of the fucking map. Fuck you, fuck your character, and get the fuck out of my life. That's how World of Warcraft works. I'm not even joking. That's how it works. Rare elite mobs that you would have to have a group to kill in World of Warcraft, you know, because you would need them for currency, for items, for whatever. Dude, ain't nobody gonna wait for you. And I am guilty of it myself. I am guilty of it myself. You know why? I'll tell you why. I'll tell you why the game promotes toxicity once more. If 5 people appear, and 5 people hit the mob, but one of them randomly goes AFK, here's what happens in WoW. The mobs scale according to how many people attack them. So if it has 100% HP, 2 people attack him, let's go with 200% HP. It's not exactly like that. It doesn't scale linearly, but we're going to assume it does. So if 5 people attack him, the boss is going to have, it's going to have 500% HP. What if the guy that hit him last goes AFK? The mob is not going to scale down on its HP. The mob is going to have this increased HP. So when you're there and you have to farm 20 rares because you need the reputation for X thing in order to get Y thing in order to attune for Z thing, which you need for the raid later, when you see the mob, you assume that everyone that's going to come might be this fucking dogshit ass player. They might not do the damage you do. So if you're super geared, you know what you do? You're like, kill. I like that. I don't give a fuck about you. I don't give a fuck about you. You don't exist in my world, you know? That's why I say that MMORPG my ass. The game makes you hostile towards other players. And of course, the guy that wants the kill will show up and you will have just killed the mob and he's gonna like dude, why not wait? And you're like, fuck you. You don't even say, I can't wait because the game has fucking destroyed your mentality so much. It's gonna be like, fuck you. And the other guy's gonna be like, no, go fuck yourself. And you're gonna ignore each other and you're gonna go on with your journey. That's how it works. World of Warcraft makes you an asshole. If you want to become an asshole, play retail WoW.
I know it sounds crazy, but having done multiple hunt trains now, I understand it completely, and I actually prefer it. It's almost like if WoW had this same concept, I may have actually seen a time-lost Proto-Drake once or twice. Warcraft eventually had moments like this for Nashtadar and Mechagon, but it's not on the same level.
It didn't. Nobody waited for you to come. We would kill the shit because you have to tag it before the enemy faction does. Because if the enemy faction tags it before you and you have PvP enabled, you're fucked. You don't get credit. No, dude, nobody's gonna wait for you.
Camaraderie in the 14 community translates to how they treat new players for the most part as well.
Yes.
Sprouts, as they are lovingly called,
Yes.
are new players with a little icon next to their name. Normally, one would assume an icon next to your name letting everyone know that you have no idea what you're doing would seem like you just got yourself a scarlet letter and became a pariah. But in
Yes.
Final Fantasy XIV, it's the exact opposite. Instead of trolling or treating them
People
poorly,
love the Sprouts.
most players cheer them on or offer advice and tips in dungeons. It makes it easier to understand if someone has no clue what's going on. You can instantly see they're new, and it's okay. And the
Yes.
game even rewards players with bonuses for having them in your group. And that's what I think is so special about the community in 14.
It's beneficial for everyone to have a Sprout in the group. You want to have a new player in the group. You will get more tombstones, you will get more EXP, you will get more whatever the fuck, okay? In World of Warcraft, dude, you don't even have to be new. You can just be not that much of a veteran. And you're gonna get kicked. The group wants you to pull 4 mobs at a time, you pull 3, you get kicked. You want to pull, the group tells you to pull 3 mobs, you pull 4, you get kicked. That's how it works in World of Warcraft. The moment that people realize that you are, assume that they are a noob in their own agenda, vote to kick goes out. And people are way more likely to confirm the vote to kick than to deny it.
I've seen plenty of players try new classes or a build or whatever in both WoW and 14. And people can get intimidated about being yelled at for sucking or not knowing something. But in 14, that little sprout icon lets players know immediately that you're newer to the game.
Yes.
So they have an expectation that you might not know some things. And it makes it easier to ask, which is honestly the biggest problem in WoW. New players are always afraid to ask what to do.
So should I pull 2 mobs or should I pull 3 mobs? You have been removed from the group.
Just as an example of how this mentality rubs off on you,
Omega.
I was doing my 14 roulettes or dungeon dailies and got the final Omega raid.
Yes.
When it popped, I was in a group of almost all sprouts. For those of you who don't know, this fight is what you would call a complicated dance. We wiped a lot.
Okay.
And in my guild chat, I was cursing up a storm. I was so upset that I had to go through this thing that I thought was going to take me 5 minutes, but I'm here at like minute 30.
Yeah.
But in party chat with the sprouts, I was like, we can do this. Come on, I'll teach you how to do this fight.
You fucking hypocritical piece of shit. I've done the same.
Often thought about what sprouts in WoW would be like, and the only thing I can think of is that it would mostly be people dropping from parties that they showed up in. Again, this isn't to say the Final Fantasy XIV community is perfect.
By the way, if I was wiping for 20 minutes, I would have left the group, by the way. Just saying.
Obviously, assholes play all sorts of games,
Yes.
but the general nature of the player base seems a bit more relaxed. Yes, someone will tell me I'm doing something wrong while I stream, but that's every game, for everyone.
Yes.
The biggest difference, I think, is the Final Fantasy XIV community does not tolerate a lot of the stuff that WoW does. The crackdown on bad actors is swift and immediate.
Yes.
And some of you may be like, well, that doesn't sound cool.
It
I
is
guess
cool.
for the people who don't want to deal with that stuff,
If you're a piece of shit, you should be treated like a piece of shit.
if it's pretty cool, I don't know. The last big takeaway I have on community is this. The WoW player base seems always ready to attack their game.
Yes.
Even while loving it.
Yes.
And the Final Fantasy XIV community is always trying to defend their game, even if it doesn't need it.
Yes. Exactly. The best way to sum up the two games.
So you've made it some 30 minutes into a YouTube video and you find yourself here. This
You
was
wait until my reaction. You say 30, my reaction's gonna be 1 hour and 30 minutes.
all just sort of a long-winded way of saying again what I'm sure I made clear in the first 5 minutes.
There's
but
the man,
I really
dude.
wanted to expand upon the differences between WoW and 14.
The one
how
and
there are
only,
players
my
who
hero.
like each of these. So I guess that's pretty much it for this video. Sure,
Goldberg.
there's definitely going to be something I missed or couldn't find a way to fit in the video. That's what comments are for, I suppose. So please, if you have something to add or additional thoughts or insights, or if you think I'm way off, let me know. This video was done out of love for both games and the knowledge that each has its own audience, and it's okay to like one and not the other. I hope the takeaway is that if you enjoy story games as much as I do, you'll check out 14, and if you could care less, you're probably already invested in WoW, and I don't see why you should leave. That's what it comes down to, at least for me. Anyway, thanks so much. Thank you to all the amazing patrons who make videos like this possible.
Dude,
Please,
this is
if
so
you like
wholesome,
this,
man.
share it with your friends or give it a like. That'd be swell. I would love it if you would consider subscribing and hit the bell and do all the things that, you know, you have to do on YouTube in order to see a video these days. But that's it. Thank you so much, and I will see you in game.
Dude, first of all, you're welcome, okay? Let me finish the video, actually. Opera doesn't give me ads. I am going to like this video. This video was made by Jesse Cox, okay? He's almost in 1 million subscribers. This is a very, very well put out video. I think... Okay, he doesn't have a camera, so I cannot tell you how many times he edited this in the background. But it is a very good video, a very constructive video. And I agree with a lot of the things he said, with almost everything he says, you know. So I'm gonna like this video. This guy is amazing. And yeah, that's pretty much it.